A few weeks ago on Kickoff Commentary, I talked about the quarterbacks in the history of the Dallas Cowboys. Well, today we're going to move on to the pass catchers of the Dallas Cowboys and to see who truly is the greatest receiver in the history of the Cowboys. Now, we're not going to go through every single receiver that is suited up for Dallas because that would take us years. However, I've identified four men that I think have separated themselves from the pack, and we will be looking at their careers today to see who truly is the greatest receiver in the history of the Dallas Cowboys. Starting first with Bob Hayes. Bob Hayes was the Dallas Cowboys' first true star receiver. Hayes, at the time of his playing, was known as the fastest man alive due to the many records he set. He set the world record in the 60-yard, 100-yard, 222-yard, and Olympic 100-meter dashes. To this day, he still holds the record for the 70-yard dash with a time of 6.9 seconds. Hayes is also the only man on today's list that we will be covering that did not wear the number 88 in his playing days, instead wearing the number 22. Hayes' first two seasons in the NFL were definitely his best. In his first season, he put up 46 catches, 1,003 yards, and 12 touchdowns. He improved on that the next year with 64 catches, 1,232 yards, and 13 touchdowns. Even though he would never reach 1,000 yards again, he would put up 10 touchdowns in 3 of the following 4 seasons. His 5 seasons with at least 10 touchdown catches is the Dallas Cowboys record. By the end of his career, Hayes was a 3-time Pro Bowler, 1-time Super Bowl champion, and an NFL Hall of Famer. His 71 receiving touchdowns in a Cowboys jersey was the most in Cowboys history until 2017. Now on to our next wide receiver, Drew Pearson. Many younger fans know Drew Pearson as the man who trashed the Philadelphia Eagles at the draft a couple of years ago. But before that, Pearson was a wide receiver for the Dallas Cowboys for 11 seasons in the 70s and 80s. Pearson's best season would come in 1979, where he caught 55 passes for 1,026 yards and 8 TDs. By the end of his career, much like Hayes, Pearson was a 3-time Pro Bowler and a Super Bowl champion, though to this point he has not been elected to the NFL Hall of Fame. Though Pearson would have more catches and receiving yards than Hayes, the difference was touchdowns. Hayes just simply had a nose for the end zone, where he had 71 receiving touchdowns, while Pearson was only able to put up 48. Still a great career for Pearson, but not quite as good as Hayes, in my opinion. Now we move on to the playmaker himself, Michael Irvin. Michael Irvin is far and away the most accomplished receiver in the history of the Dallas Cowboys. His accolades are numerous. He put up 5 straight 1,200-plus yard seasons, and 7 1,000-yard seasons overall in his NFL career. His best season was undoubtedly in 1995, where he put up 111 catches, 1,603 yards, and 10 touchdowns. Irvin was simply amazing in his career, and the numbers showed. He was a 5-time Pro Bowler, 3-time Super Bowl champion, and now member of the NFL Hall of Fame. The only thing that one could count against Michael Irvin is how rarely he got into the end zone compared to his receiving numbers. Despite his 7 1,000-yard receiving seasons, Michael Irvin was only able to top 10 touchdowns once, which is why he is behind Hayes in the all-time touchdown list for the Cowboys. But overall, I think you'd be hard-pressed to find anybody that doesn't say Michael Irvin is the best receiver the Dallas Cowboys have ever had. That leaves us with one final candidate, Dez Bryant. Dez Bryant was the number 88 for my generation. And though his peak was shorter than any other player on this list, I might argue that it was the best. From 2012 through 2014, Dez Bryant put up at least 88 catches, at least 1,200 yards, and at least 12 touchdowns in all 3 seasons. Dez's best year was definitely 2014, when he put up 88 catches, 1,320 yards, and 16 touchdowns. Those 16 touchdowns are still a Dallas Cowboys record. Unfortunately, injuries caught up to Dez Bryant after 2014, and he has not put up a 1,000-yard season since then. Dez's accolades to this point look like this. Just like Hayes and Pearson, he is a 3-time Pro Bowler, and he leads the team all-time in receiving touchdowns with 73. Although Dez Bryant's peak years were shorter than the other players on this list, I have to say, as a fan during the time, he was very, very fun to watch. Now that we've looked at all 4 receivers, I can very easily say that the best receiver in Dallas Cowboys history is Michael Irvin. It's pretty obvious, and there's no real competition here. He has significantly more receiving yards, more Pro Bowl appearances, and more championship rings than any other receiver mentioned. However, I do think a few things are worth mentioning. Bob Hayes deserves a strong consideration as the second best receiver in team history, and definitely the best deep threat in the team's history, considering just how many touchdowns he scored in the 60s and 70s. The fact that nobody would break that record up until Dez in 2017 speaks to how amazing his touchdown scoring was. Also, I would argue that Dez Bryant's 2012 through 2014 run is the highest peak that any Dallas Cowboys receiver has attained. Up until that point, the receivers of the Cowboys would either be able to get lots of yards and lots of touchdowns. For those 3 years, Dez was easily able to get both. So even though Michael Irvin is the best receiver in Dallas Cowboys history, he is not the only great wide receiver in Cowboys history. So, with all of that being said, what do you guys think? Let me know down in the comments section. Subscribe so that the channel can grow. This has been Kickoff Commentary, and have a great day.